Hey friends, I chose 4 awesome books to read. So some of our favorites: Pete the Cat, Abby Yo-Yo, Iggy Peck Architect, and the Feelings book. So we'll start with Pete the Cat. Here we go. Pete the Cat and his 4 groovy buttons. Created and illustrated by James Dean. Story by Eric Litwin. Whoa, I wonder how many buttons are on here. Just looking at it, how many do you see? There's so many. What colors do you see there? So many hues of blue, red, yellow, green, verde, amarillo, rojo, azul. Pete the Cat and his 4 groovy buttons. Created and illustrated by James Dean. Story is by Eric Litwin. Whoa, here's that love page where the author and illustrator, they show who they care about. Here we are, to Train Destiny. Always follow your dreams. There's JD, initials for James Dean. And to Zelda Litwin, my mother, whose creative spirit nurtured my imagination. And there's Eric Litwin's initials, EL. There's Pete the Cat. Pete the Cat put on his favorite shirt with 4 big, colorful, round, groovy buttons. He loved his buttons so much, he sang this song. He's thinking for... Looks like it's 8 o'clock. He woke up at 8 today. My buttons, my 4 groovy buttons. My buttons, my 4 groovy buttons. Pop! Oh no! One of the buttons popped off and rolled away. How many buttons are left? 3. 3, because 4 minus 1 equals 3. Did Pete cry? Goodness no. Buttons come and buttons go. He kept on singing his song. My buttons, my 3 groovy buttons. My buttons, my 3 groovy buttons. Pop! Oh no! Another button popped off and rolled away. How many buttons are left now? 2. Let's see. There's that numeral 2. 2, because 3 minus 1 equals 2. Did Pete cry? Goodness no. Buttons come and buttons go. He kept on singing his song. My buttons, my 2 groovy buttons. My buttons, my 2 groovy buttons. Pop! Oh no. And look, he's like eating his ice cream and it just pop. Another button popped off and rolled away. How many buttons are left? Here's the numeral for 1. 1, and there's the word for 1. 1, because 2 minus 1 equals 1. Did Pete cry? Goodness no. Buttons come and buttons go. He kept on singing his song. My button, my 1 groovy button. My button, my 1 groovy button. Pop! Oh no, the last button popped off and rolled away. How many buttons are left? 0. 0. There's that numeral for 0 and an O. Yeah, and a circle. Because 1 minus 1 equals 0. Did Pete cry? Goodness no. Buttons come and buttons go. Pete looked down at his buttonless shirt. And what do you think he saw? His belly button. And he kept on singing his song. And he was thinking, it's all good. My button, still have my belly button. My button, still have my belly button. I guess it simply goes to show that stuff will come and stuff will go. But do we cry? Goodness no, we keep on singing. I love Pete the Cat. Buttons come and buttons go. Boing, 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 boing. There's a lot of buttons there. Whoa. All right. Okay, let's press pause for a second as I get the next story. And it will be one of my favorites, Pete Seeger's story song, Abby Yo-Yo, illustrated by Michael Hayes. Here we go. Abby Yo-Yo. Abby Yo-Yo. Here's that love page, dedicated with love to Dan and Cassie, and for Polly. Once upon a time, there was a little boy who played the ukulele. Around town he'd go clink, clonk, clonk, clink, clonk. The grown-ups would say, "Take that thing out of here." Not only that, the boy's father got in trouble. The boy's father was a magician. He had a magic wand. He'd go zoop, zoop, and make things disappear. He played too many drinks on people. He'd come up to someone about to drink a nice cold glass of something, and zoop, the glass disappears. Someone doing a hard job of work, zip, zip, zip. Up comes the father with his magic wand, and zoop, no saw. He'd come up to someone about to sit down after a hard day's work, zoop, no chair. Oh, man. How do you think that made them feel there? People said to the father, "You get out of here. Take your magic wand and your tricks, and you and your son just get." The boy and his father were ostracized. That means they made him live on the edge of town. Now in this town, they used to tell stories. The people used to tell stories about the giants that lived in the old days. They used to tell about a giant called Abby Yo-Yo. They said he was as tall as a tree and could eat people up. Of course, nobody believed the story, but they told it anyway. One day, the sun rose blood red over the hill. The first people got up and looked out the window. They saw a great big shadow in front of the sun. They could feel the whole ground shake. Women screamed. Men fainted. "Run for your lives, Abby Yo-Yo's coming!" He comes to the sheep pasture. He grabs a whole sheep. Yelp. He comes to the cow pasture. He grabbed a whole cow. Yunk. Men yelled, "Grab your most precious possessions and run! Run for your lives!" Just then, the boy and his father woke up. "Hey, Pa, what's coming over the fields?" "Why, son, that's Abby Yo-Yo. Oh, if only I could get him to lie down, I could make him disappear." The boy said, "Come with me, Pa." He grabbed his father by one hand. The father got his magical wand, and the boy gets his ukulele. They run across the fields. People yelled, "Don't go near him. He'll eat you alive." There was Abby Yo-Yo. He had long fingernails because he never cut them. He had slobbery teeth because he never brushed them. And he had stinky feet because he never washed them. He raised up his claws. Just then, the boy took out his ukulele, and they started singing. Abby Yo-Yo, Abby Yo-Yo, Abby Yo-Yo, Abby Yo-Yo, Abby Yo-Yo. Well, you know, the giant had never heard a song about himself before, and a foolish grin spread over his face, and the giant started to dance. Abby Yo-Yo, Abby Yo-Yo. The boy went even faster. Abby Yo-Yo, 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 Abby Yo-Yo. The giant got out of breath. He staggered. He fell down flat on the ground. Up steps the father with his magical wand, and zoop, zoop, he made the giant disappear. looked out their windows. He's gone. Abby Yo-Yo's disappeared. I wonder where he disappeared to. The people ran across the fields. They lifted the boy and his father up on their shoulders. They said, "Come back to town. Bring your darn ukulele. We don't care anymore." And they all sang together. Abby Yo-Yo, 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 Abby Yo-Yo. That was an awesome story. Okay, everyone press pause as I get our next story. And now press play. Boom. Iggy Peck, Architect by Andrea Beatty, illustrated by David Roberts. Here we go. This one's a good one. Young Iggy Peck is an architect and has been since he was 2, when he built a great tower in only an hour with nothing but diapers and glue. Whoa. Good gracious Ignatius, his mother exclaimed. That's the coolest thing I've ever seen. But her smile faded fast as a light wind blew past, and she realized those diapers weren't clean. "Ignatius, my son, what on earth have you done? That's disgusting and nasty. It stinks." But Iggy was gone. He was out on the lawn, using dirt clods to build a great sphinx. This reminds me of some of you who build. When Iggy was 3, his parents could see his unusual passion would stay. He built churches and chapels from peaches and apples and temples from modeling clay. At dinner one night, to his father's delight, Iggy got a bright gleam in his eye, and out on the porch built the St. Louis Arch from pancakes and coconut pie. Dear Ig had it made until 2nd grade, when his teacher was Miss Lila Greer. On the very first day, she had this to say: "We do not talk of buildings in here. Gothic or Romanesque, I couldn't care less about buildings, ancient or new." She said in her lecture about architecture that it had no place in grade 2. That might seem severe, but she was sincere, for when she was no more than 7, she'd had a great fright at a dizzying height in a building so tall it scraped heaven. On an architect's tour of the 95th floor, young Lila got lost from the group. She was found 2 days later in a stuck elevator, eating cheese with the French circus troupe. After that day, it's quite safe to say, she thought all building lovers were nuts. As a teacher, she taught that, above all, one ought to avoid them. No ifs, ands, or buts. As you might guess, it would cause Iggy stress to hear such terrible talk. But he didn't hear. He sat in the rear while building a castle of chalk. "You, Iggy Peck, your desk is a wreck. Tear down that castle right now. You will not build in here. Is that perfectly clear? Do you need to see Principal Howe?" I love how he's a rebel. Like, look at that. He's still doing what he loves. Oh, how's he feeling here? "No, ma'am," Iggy said. He lowered his head, and his heart sank down to the floor. Has your heart ever sank down to the floor? With no chance to build, his interest was killed. Now 2nd grade was a bore. After 12 long days that passed in a haze of reading, writing, and arithmetic, Miss Greer took the class to Blue River Pass for a hike and an old-fashioned picnic. They crossed an old trestle to a small island nestled in the heart of a burbling stream, but they no sooner passed than the footbridge collapsed and Miss Lila Greer started to scream. "We're trapped here! Oh my, alas, kids, goodbye!" Her eyeballs rolled back in her head. She dropped to the ground with a vague groaning sound, luckily fainted, not dead. The class was amazed. They stood there quite dazed, uncertain of what they should do. But one bright young man was off hatching a plan, which started with Miss Lila's shoe. Soon each lad and lass there at Blue River Pass was working together as one. This reminds me of you all for sure, when we all worked together. And when she came to, Miss Lila Greer knew that something quite brave had been done. She looked in the air and saw hanging there a structure with cables and braces, and on the far side, beaming with pride, were 17 smiling young faces. Boots, tree roots, and strings, fruit roll-ups and things, some of which one should not mention, were stretched ridge to ridge in a glorious bridge, dangling from shoestring suspension. It all became clear to Miss Lila Greer as she crossed that bridge over the stream. There are worse things to do when you're in grade 2 than to spend your time building a dream. Now every week at Blue River Creek, elementary and second grade, all the school kids can hear, along with Miss Greer, how the world's greatest buildings were made. The weekly guest speaker, in t-shirt and sneakers, talks of buildings from Rome to Quebec. Of course, he's the guy who builds towers from pie, that brilliant young man, Iggy Peck. This book reminds me of some of you. Let's press pause as I get our last story. Pause. And I'm gonna do some Todd Parr now. Let's press play. Boom. The Feelings book by Todd Parr. There's a lot of feelings on this cover. The Feelings book by Todd Parr. Oh, here's his love page. Can you put a heart on there? Love, Todd. This is dedicated to a lot of people. So many names. Sometimes I feel silly. Sometimes I feel cranky. Think about a time when you felt silly or cranky. How are you feeling now? Sometimes I feel scared. Sometimes I feel like standing on my head. Sometimes I feel like reading a book under the covers. Oh, she's reading a feelings book too. Look, it says feelings book. Sometimes I feel like celebrating my birthday, even though it's not today. Oh, we pretend that sometimes. We pretend to have birthday celebrations for each other. Sometimes I feel brave. Sometimes I feel like looking out the window all day. Sometimes I feel like dancing. Maybe we can have like a dance party sometime and pretend to have some birthday celebrations. That sounds nice. We should do that. A big, big birthday celebration. Virtually, all together. That would be fun. Sometimes I feel like making mud pies. We could even make mud pies for it. Sometimes I feel like I have a tummy ache. Oh, tummy troubles. Sometimes I feel like holding hands with a friend. Sometimes I feel lonely. This made me think of Lightning. I hope Lightning doesn't feel too lonely in his bowl. Sometimes I feel like yelling really loud. Sometimes I feel like staying in the bathtub all day. Sometimes I feel like trying something new. Sometimes I feel like dressing up. That's fun. Sometimes I feel like doing nothing. I wonder what that's like. Sometimes I feel like camping with my dog. Sometimes I feel like crying. Yeah. Sometimes I feel like eating pizza for breakfast, for lunch, and for dinner. I love pizza. Sometimes I feel like kissing a sea lion. What? A sea lion? What's a sea lion? I've never seen a sea lion in real life. I'd imagine they look like this, what Todd Parr drew. Have you ever seen or saw the sea lion in real life? Sometimes I feel like a king. Wow, check out that crown. Reminds me of the artist Basquiat, this crown. We learned that Basquiat is known for making those crowns. Remember, friends, no matter how you feel, don't keep your feelings to yourself. Share them with someone you love. Love, Todd. I just really had a blast reading with you all. Love you all. Sending love, well wishes your way. Peace, love, light. Bye, friends. Until next time.